Hello, good morning. Today our guest is Federico Asta, and Federico will be sharing his research paper with us titled Bono Malum Superet, the long-run effects of radical institutional change. And your paper, Federico, is exploring the effect of radical institutional change on long-run growth in the case of the partition of Friuli Venezia Giulia in 1947, and this region is between Italy and Yugoslavia. So, Federico, what motivated the partition?
The partition was, first of all, thanks to be here. I'm so happy to share my research. I've done it with two other people. They are quite good and I've worked with them really well. So I will speak also for them. Our paper was a research because we were living in Slovenia at that time, that is at the border of Trieste in Italy. So we were absolutely interested in understanding the past of those area. In 1945, the Second World War was finishing, but as you know, every time a war finishes, something remained left or something remained not ordered so well. So in this case, one of the parts in Europe that was struggling to find an order and a political a political road to follow was Trieste, Friuli Venezia Giulia, and the past territory of Republic of Italy, that was Istria. If you check one map, you can see they are close, so it's easy to understand why they are both in the Adriatic Sea. So Slovenia and Yugoslavia wanted to enter in the Adriatic Sea from Istria, and the same wants the Italian government. So this is one of the main factors that led to understand then what's were the consequences of this. So the partition was I mean, people, politicians and military forces decided to create a line called the Morgan Line to divide the Yugoslavia Empire and the Italian Republic to avoid other wars and other conflicts, because after the Second World War, also the Communist Party and the Communist Party of Europe was against the Occidental thinking. So in this particular border, tensions were so high, so they decided to divide in two the area to avoid conflicts, because agreements were not reached. So it was better to divide and avoid any wars there. This is why they divided the area, the Litorale area, in Zone A, that included Trieste, so it was under the Italian government, and Zone B, that was under Yugoslavian government. Trieste in particular was also called Free Territory of Trieste because it was under the international coverage, so it was not properly Italian at this time. This is the historical framework. And for our research is a quasi experiment, because it's a perfect example to see what can happen when institutions, when there is a radical change of institutions in an area that before was together. Because if you look at the map, Istria, Trieste, and Friuli Venezia Giulia, under the fascist regime, they were under the same political view. So this is Matthias. This is the scenario. I hope to have answered to your question quite properly.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
But I read your research, and in your research, it is stated that at one point, this region was under Austrian rule.
Under the Austrian rule, yes. Those in the First World War. So you know, Italy. We got in Europe. We had a lot of trouble in those times. Two World War, and Italian Republic was still is a young republic, because until 1945 and also later, yeah, as we can see in this case with Trieste, that became properly Italian in 1954. we didn't have the border as we have today. Friuli Venezia Giulia, Trentino Alto Adige, and other regions were under the Austrian Empire. So, and it helps a lot our research, because that area that you see, Slovenia, Istria, and that part of Friuli Venezia Giulia, were under the same empire for 1,000 of years. So this allow us to have the basis, a solid basis, to assume that in this area, until a certain time, there was the same institutional program. These were the same rules, same culture, etc., etc. Even if about the culture, we can say that Austro-Hungarian Empire was a mix, but an ordered mix that led us to assume, as I said before, to assume a good starting point for our analysis, to understand if some changes in institutions, human capital, how to allocate capital, and things like that, could affect the growth in that kind of area. And we have this example because they were parallel. So Zone A of Trieste and Zone B, they started about together, but parallel. So this led us to study this fact.
How rich was the region prior to the partition?
They were at the same level, more or less, because as I said, they were under the same geographical area and political area. So this was also a good approach to follow, to understand the richness level before the division or before these troubles. And for sure, we can say that they were close. So I'm referring to that area, to Litorale area. I mean, that was under our analysis.
Was growth driven by liberalization? Because you make several comparisons between Yugoslavia and the region, and you argue that Yugoslavia followed a socialist path.
Exactly. What can I say? That other things that brings us to analyze this territory was also the big difference, because about the economy that was decided to follow by the states. Zone A, Trieste and Friuli Venezia Giulia, they followed the Italian Republic. It means we were in the Occidental bloc, in the Western bloc, while the Zone B followed the socialist part, follows the communist part. So it was a perfect example how two different market economy how two different economy could work. In the Occidental part, we have a liberalized economy, market economy, free movement of capital, free movement of people, and a perfect allocation given through the market rules. While in the east side, in the Zone B, we had a socialist party that started to plan the economy. So it was a planned economy. And as you know, the big difference is that in the end, maybe they could reach the same level. But in the middle, if you made wrong decision, you will make error for 5 or 10 years, because the plan this is the duration of the Yugoslavian plans. While if you are in the market economy, errors are are well welcomed, because thanks to the error we can rearrange the approach. So in those times, a liberalized economy, after some years, we showed up that performed well than the socialist part. And thanks to the unification of the two areas, so we have an indirect proof about the positive impact of the liberalization of the economy, is given by the fact that after the unification of Zone A and Zone B, also the Zone B started to develop faster to reach the level of the western side, and not the opposite. It was not the western side to decrease or to reach the level of the eastern side. So this is a good proof, and quite easy to understand here in this discussion, I think.
How did the partition affect human capital?
Oh, this is very interesting, and if you let me to underline this point, is quite nowadays we are facing the same problem. We are facing a problem of immigrations, of human movement, and how can we understand how these movements could impact in some economies? Simply looking at the history, and also Trieste and our paper Bono Malum Superate show and give you an hint to think what could happen today. Because the human capital is given properly by people. And if you let people move, they bring with them all of things like culture, mindsets, preparation, professionals preparation. And what happened in Istria, that's the region we are talking about, there were two movements in opposite way. The first one was the immigration part after the 1920s, so after the fascist regimes, when they decided to colonize the Istria, they sent in Istria Italians, a lot of Italians, but not only low or middle class, also high class. So there were doctors, engineers, well-prepared people, because regimes was thinking that only giving good professionals and good people there in terms of, mindset, it would be a winning strategy to conquer and to colonize that area. So in a very few years, they started to create an Italian framework there: laws, schools, language, culture, also religion sometimes. And this means that in few years they created a common basis for the entire area. To be there was to like to be in Italy. This was the main result at those time. And what happened after this? After the 1945, in particular 1947, so after the partition, and after the war, because we cannot forget the sad part of the story, that was the, about, you know something about Foibe? Do you know?
Repeat what you just said.
Do you know something about Foibe and the people that were killed by by Yugoslavian people there? During the war, there was also a massacre there. People were killed and they were thrown down the hole in the ground. They are called foibe. So a lot of Italians started to escape from Istria. And what was brought before, what I said during the regime, was left later. And people that came out from Istria, came back in Italy or were killed, let the territory to be poorer than before, because they lost their culture, they lost their institutional framework. And here again, we find the importance of institutions. So the human capital movement can enrich or reduce the richness of a country, as we can see. So of course, an explanation of the reduction of growth of zone B was also given by the immigration of people that were there before.
Federico,
Yes.
because we're talking about immigration, in your article, it is said that people from Friuli immigrated to
Yes.
Argentina. Why did they go to Argentina?
There was a big, in Italy in general, we have to analyze the Italian general situation. It was so common, you can find still today lots of second name or family names there in South America that are from Italy. Because there was a lot of job. They were close in terms of culture. You know, South America is
Yes.
Catholic, so a lot of things that are in common. And as you know, people, when they have to transfer, when they have to move, they try sometimes to reach something that is similar to their to their birthplace, no, to avoid big changes. Because try to imagine at those time to transfer and to move from a country to another that was at the opposite side of the world. It was not so easy as today. This is the explanation. So a general trend of Italian immigration there in Americas, I would say North and South, in this region, we found that particular variety of people went in South America and Argentina.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
As you right,
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
Argentina, many small entrepreneurs and agricultural
Exactly.
owners from Friuli, Venezia, Giulia arrived and brought their expertise and culture together with the management practices.
Correctly, correctly. It happens that you find it's so interesting. There is no an explanation, I would say, rational behind. It's an event that we studied. I repeat, probably the main reasons are the same that I told you before. But it's interesting to see that those people were so, I mean, self-made man, small entrepreneur. So they brought there in Argentina professions and quality, job of quality. While sometimes, if you look at the Italian immigration in general, if you look at, for example, New York or Manhattan or other parts that are so famous, sometimes they brought also people that were not literated and they were not so well prepared. So we had different kind of immigration from Italy, but in this region, we had this kind of immigration.
And again, you posit the
Yes.
existing evidence unequivocally support the notion of rapid economic growth in the Italian Republic during the post-war years, enabled by the broad-based pluralist de jure and de facto political institutions, laying the seeds of rapid innovation and technology adoption. And
Yes.
this is in opposition to Yugoslavia.
Yes.
Why was the climate in post-war Italy more responsive to market changes? Why was it more dynamic, the political climate?
Yes, I would say the dynamic part was Italian one.
Yes.
The- but because I told you before, I mean, the main reason it's not time, I think, to enter in details or some strong or finest, because the main reason is the structure of the market. If you look at the Yugoslavia, the tradition was the central economy, a centralized economy, and the decision was taken by one person or a few people and without any changes. While in the Occidental, in Italian part, the dynamic part was given by the small entrepreneur, the freedom of the economy and the liberalized economy, I would say. So we are not here to say that one model is better than other in absolute term. We are saying that one region was positive affected by a model of institution and economic market.
Well, Federico, I read your piece and it's in front of me right now. And according to the data, market systems are superior to statist systems. There is even a study evaluating Hugo Chavez in Venezuela cited in your paper, arguing that the policies of Chavez were not that great. So
The positive,
that's a recurring leitmotif in your article. Obviously, as a researcher, you're objective, but the evidence is quite clear. Market systems do better than socialist systems.
in this area, yes, it seems
Not
to
just
be.
not just in this area, but based on the citations
Yes.
that are in your article everywhere. Like you cited a study talking about populism in Latin America and its negative effects.
Yes, they had. We tried, indeed, we found, if you look at the data sets, we used a lot of data from Argentina and South America because we found similarities in terms of path to follow for growth. So we can say the same. I mean, we need a popularism or socialist or something that growth without rational behind is not so efficient. This is the main idea, Matthews. This is the
Yes. No, we're
yeah,
still
I don't know, but tell me if you agree about that ideas. I mean,
what are you asking me exactly?
about this kind of market strategy and
Well,
market.
no, I know. According to the data, free markets work. They're superior
Mhm.
to socialist systems. And we have excellent studies on the impacts of trade liberalization and
Yeah,
economic growth, especially for developing countries in the African region. So yes, I am in favor of market systems. Trade openness is positively correlated with economic growth.
yes, yes.
And Latin American populism, another interesting topic. What your co-author Rock? How is it
Correct.
pronounced?
Yes.
Yes,
It was a co-author. He's a professor. I want to spend
yes,
some thought
yes.
about him.
He's a really
Yes.
fascinating academic. He
Yes.
did a
Yes. Yes.
paper on Argentina recently, the rise and fall of
Exactly.
Argentina. I want him on the show. I sent him a mail, so I'm expecting to
I
get
hope
him.
he will answer you because he knows a lot of more than me than about Argentina, and we decided to use data sets of Argentina from him. As you see, we were three co-author, but honestly, I would say that he was a sort of I was coordinator too, but he has also the academic background that was, necessary to develop a paper. For sure, if you want to reach him, I'm quite sure that he will answer, and it will give you absolutely more information about for more than me for sure about this argument. If you want he's an expert of Argentinian
Yes,
development.
he's an expert in many areas. He even
Yeah,
wrote a
yeah.
piece on monarchies recently.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes. So institutions are the main, I would say the institutional topic is the main argument, but under this, he developed a lot of researches. Yes.
We're still on the topic of human capital and immigration. So during this era when Yugoslavia was investing in anti-market policies,
Yes.
did the emergence of these policies result in in human capital leaving the country?
Yes, of course. It was one of the reasons, but I would say before of the investment and the decision was also the the possibilities that were told to have in the Western side. So people also move, they are rational in this kind of behaviors. If you understand that that's so close of you, I repeat you, it's a border there, huh? But if you go there, there are no mountains so high so it's quite easy to pass from Slovenia to Italy. So there are no so geographical issues that in a sort of way contains migration. So it was easy to move. Uh, Maybe it was also the socialists there. They were then so poor. You see it now today, Balkans. They are developing quite later than the rest of Europe. So the immigration from those countries was so strong until I remember the middle of 90s. My personal remember. Um, so yes, when you have an institutions to resume to wrap up, when you have an institutions that is not so efficient and does not follow the needs of a population, it's obvious that you impact negatively of human capital because you try to what remains there. I mean, what's the question is what are the people that remains in those countries? They are not the best people probably because the best
Yeah.
people try to realize themselves and what this is what happens today. And I'm Italian, and I see this. It's a problem. Maybe you know also, but it's still is a problem today. We have what we call the fuga dei cervelli, means the escape of the very good people because they find better opportunities somewhere else. And this is a detrimental effect on human capital of a country.
Yes, and it slows innovation and institutions
Of
because
course,
smarter people will build better
of
institutions.
course, yes, yes. If you have smart people, you have positive effect in two terms. I see. The first one is institutions people, because if you have people that are prepared, that are ready, that they are I mean they are good. No, we can use this adjective. They tried and they spend their efforts also to create a good environment. No, if you don't have so strong people and you remain with the weak people somewhere, you don't create an efficient environment, but you create an environment that led to some few people to take the power.
Federico, are
Yes,
you interested in IQ?
in IQ,
Yes.
not a lot, not a lot,
Okay, okay. I'm
not a lot.
just saying that because there are some papers examining the link between IQ in
Yeah, I
northern and
read
southern Italy
it.
and the impact on
Yes,
institutional quality and development.
we read it. We read it. We read it. And also, more than IQ, I suggest you also to read something about the rate of alphabetism. That maybe is also better, no? Because the reason is also to reach the maximum level possible of alphabetism. So let people to think better. It's not necessary to have the best all time, but it's quite necessary to have a strong basis of people to have a good institutions. And if you look at the political situation in Italy here today, I mean, we can discuss about that, I think.
Well, you're in Italy, I'm in Jamaica. Italy is still a member of the rich boy club. Jamaica is not.
Exactly.
Jamaica has more problems than Italy. A
Yes.
crime problem, a
Yeah. No.
corruption problem, low growth and low productivity. Relative to other countries in Europe, Italy is not as productive, but Jamaica's productivity rate has been consistently low. So you really can't compare my situation to your situation.
No, I can't compare in absolute term, but what you can do if you are interested in this, you can check the difference that are inside Italy, within Italian borders, because I think, as you know, we have a lot of regions from north to south of Italy, and if you look at the south of Italy, for example, you find really poor country, really poor regions with strong problem, very rich
The
problem.
moral basis of backward societies, Edward Banfield and Robert Putnam, they're interested in this in southern Italy,
Ah,
but Banfield is dead, as you should know.
but
Yeah, Edward Banfield. But people in economists like to talk about social capital and its implications for Italian growth.
hmm. I mean, I will read about him because you made me curious now.
Yeah, Edward Banfield and Robert Putnam.
Okay, okay.
Putnam is
I
still
will,
alive. Banfield died years ago. His book is an older book, The Moral Basis of Backward Societies.
yeah, I will check because this argument is quite common in Italy to discuss. So I want to read about this.
Mm. And since
Now,
we're
just to finish. Now, what my main focus is in the private sector, in the energy sector. Is quite I mean under the spot now, as you know. And so my research it is more in this area, but more related to empirical world, I would say, without so we made research how to balance a portfolio of societies and or commodities in particular. So now my field is quite different from the university period, but I mean, I found those kind of thinking quite useful for every knowledge field. So this is why also the professor still, the professor Spruck, that is a real professor, still maintain relation with me about these researches, because when you understand how to think and how to approach analysis is the same wherever you go. This is the
Federico,
yes.
this is the last question on the topic,
Go.
governance, because in your paper you referred to state capacity. So did the partition improve the quality of governance?
I would say the partition divided the quality of governance in the because it's also not easy to understand to answer this question, because you have to understand the dates. If you look at the governments in zone, okay, in zone B we had Yugoslavian governments. Okay, this is quite easy to understand. So it was centralized and the quality was the same as the central quality. So it was under the socialist government. In the interesting thing and the interesting part is in the zone A, because the zone A was not under the Italian government, but was under the international rules. And if I remember well, England and New Zealand took part of this, I mean, power control in this area. So I would say yes. The government's quality was positively affected by the division of the territory, because it led to the territorial of Trieste to got not only the Italian rules, but to got also English and New Zealand rules and the international act, under the international act. So this means that in this kind of situation, it's so easy to find the best outcome as possible, no? Because it's the common interest to make this area well functioning, also to have the power to have an opposition against the Yugoslavian part. So in this case, I would say yes.
All right. So thanks for showing up, Federico Asta.
Thank you,
I
Matthias.
think
Thank you.
you were great and we'll definitely talk again. All right.
I will
Bye.
be happy. I will be happy.